I was the one who found them. Not because I went looking, because the house made me. The air had that strange stillness, the kind that settles when something has already happened. My father's car was still in the driveway, his coat still hanging by the door. But the sound that came from upstairs wasn't his voice. It was hers. And someone else's. The creak of the bed, the muffled breath, a laugh that didn't belong in Grief's house. I stood there for a long time before moving, hand on the banister. My heart hammering against a truth I wasn't ready to hold. When I finally climbed the stairs, I didn't kick the door open like in movies. I didn't shout. I just watched. My stepmother, Evelyn, half covered by sheets. Her hair spilling across the same pillow my father used to rest his head on. The man beside her turned toward me. It wasn't a stranger. It was my father's business partner. Daniel. The one who'd given the eulogy at the funeral 3 weeks earlier. The one who'd cried while shaking my hand. The one who, right now, wasn't sorry. Evelyn didn't flinch. She just looked at me, her expression caught between shame and defiance. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "You shouldn't either," I replied. I left without slamming the door. The quiet was louder that way. Outside, the rain had started, slow, deliberate. Like the sky was trying to wash the house clean. I walked until I couldn't see it anymore. For 3 days, I didn't go back. When I finally did, she was waiting in the kitchen. Sitting at the table with a cup of coffee gone cold. "I can explain," she said. "Don't," I said. "It'll make it worse." Her mouth twitched, a ghost of a smile. "You sound like him. Maybe that's the problem." She sighed and reached for the locket around her neck, a habit she had when she lied. "It wasn't about love." "Then what?" "It was about revenge." She didn't wait for me to speak. "Your father ruined him, Daniel. The company, the debt, everything. I told him to stop, but your father never forgave betrayal. So Daniel lost everything. His family, his home. He wanted your father to feel it too. And you helped?" Her eyes met mine. I made him believe I was his punishment. I laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. "You think that's noble?" "I think it was necessary." "Did you love him?" "I loved what he made me remember, that I wasn't powerless." Her words landed heavy, cruelly honest. "So this," I said, "was justice?" "No," she whispered. "This was survival." Later that night, I sat in my father's study. The scent of tobacco and old books still thick in the air. His desk was immaculate, the way he'd left it. Except for one thing, an envelope resting in the center, addressed to me. Inside was a single page, written in his precise, unforgiving handwriting. "If you're reading this, I'm already gone. Evelyn will find someone to blame. Don't let it be you. The truth is simpler. I made too many enemies to die of natural causes." I read it twice. The edges of the paper cut my fingers. On the back, a second line, hastily scrawled. "Check the camera in my room." The next morning, I found it, the small camera tucked inside the alarm clock. The memory card held 3 videos. The last was dated the night before he died. In it, he sat at the edge of the bed, staring into the lens. "If she's watching this, tell her I forgive her," he said. "And tell her forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting." He paused, looking down, as if speaking to someone standing beside the camera. "I know, Daniel. I know everything." Then the screen went black. When I confronted her, she didn't deny it. She just asked one question. "Do you think he deserved it?" I didn't answer. Because somewhere deep down, I wasn't sure he hadn't. She left a week later. No note. No forwarding address. Just the empty locket she used to wear, resting on the kitchen table. Inside was a photograph, my father, Daniel, and Evelyn, smiling at a company event years ago. On the back, written in her handwriting, "None of us were innocent." Sometimes, when I drive past that house, I still see the light on in the upstairs window. The bed's long gone, but I imagine them there, my father, my stepmother. Her lover, trapped in the same moment, the same betrayal, repeating itself forever. And I realize the truth Evelyn could never say out loud. Revenge doesn't end things. It just replaces the person you hate with the one you've become. I sold the house 2 months later. The realtor called it a beautiful family home. But all I saw was a mausoleum of half-told lies. I kept one thing, my father's watch. It was still running, still ticking like nothing had stopped. I moved into a small apartment downtown, away from the past and the silence. But some sounds don't stay buried. Every night at 11:43, the exact time my father died, the watch stopped ticking. Then, 30 seconds later, it started again. That was when I'd hear it, the faint creak of bed springs, like someone shifting their weight. I told myself it was my imagination, the brain trying to fill in empty rooms. Until the first letter arrived. No return address. No handwriting I recognized, just my name. Inside, a single line written in black ink. You never checked his safe. There was no signature, but I didn't need one. The handwriting wasn't hers, not my father's either, it was Daniel's. The man who should have been gone, hiding, maybe even dead. The safe was built into the wall behind my father's bookshelves. I'd seen him use it only once, years ago. It took me hours to guess the code, but I finally found it, his wedding anniversary. The first one, not the one he celebrated with her. Inside were photographs, neatly stacked in envelopes, the corners sharp from disuse. The first few were harmless, family trips, dinners, corporate events. But the later ones, those were worse. My father and Daniel, meetings, documents, hands exchanging envelopes, money, bribes. And then the last photo, Evelyn, standing between them, her expression unreadable. Her hand resting on my father's shoulder. On the back, a note in my father's handwriting. If she betrays me, it's because I asked her to. I didn't sleep that night. Every word. Every image kept looping through my head until the truth started shifting shape. Maybe she hadn't just been his wife. Maybe she'd been part of something bigger. The next day, I drove to the office building my father and Daniel used to share. The nameplate was gone, but the building manager remembered me. "You're Robert's boy, right?" he said. "There's something you should see." He led me to the basement. The smell of dust and oil hit me like a memory. He pointed to a storage locker with my father's initials on it. I pried it open. Inside, boxes of records, audio tapes, contracts, evidence of something massive. And one tape labeled E. I played it right there on an old cassette deck. My father's voice, calm, controlled. "Evelyn, if this goes wrong, you know what to do." Her voice followed, low and tight. "You're asking me to lie to him. To Adam. He's my son. He'll forgive you. You don't know him as well as you think. Then make him believe you. And Daniel? He'll understand when it's over." The tape clicked. Silence. I stood there, dizzy, the room spinning around me. That night, I got another letter. "Don't make the same mistake I did. Meet me where it ended." No name again, but I knew. Daniel. The bridge where my father's car went off the road. I went at midnight. The wind was sharp, the river below black as oil. A figure stood at the railing, shoulders hunched against the cold. "Adam," he said when I got close. His voice was older, rougher, but still the same. "You should be dead." He smiled faintly. "So should he." He handed me an envelope. Inside was a photo, my father's car, submerged. The water catching fire from leaking fuel. "I didn't kill him," Daniel said. "She did, but not the way you think." He asked her to. I stared at him. "What do you mean?" He told her to end it. The company, the blackmail, the marriage. Everything. He wanted to disappear before the truth caught up. She was supposed to stage it. But she didn't expect him to actually die. I looked up. "And you?" "I buried the rest." He pointed toward the river. "There's a box under there. Proof. But you won't find it without her." "Without Evelyn?" He nodded. "She's not dead, Adam. She's hiding." When I looked back at him, he was gone. Just the wind and the water, the reflection of the bridge lights trembling like something. Breathing. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt the same thing I'd felt standing outside that bedroom door. The sense that I'd walked in on something that wasn't finished. Something that was waiting for me to take my father's place. And as I turned to leave, I heard it, soft, almost kind. Her voice. "You shouldn't have come back." I didn't sleep after that night on the bridge. Her voice had been so close, close enough that the air still trembled with it when I got home. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw her standing by the railing, hair caught in the wind. The same look she'd worn in my father's bed, unafraid of being seen. If Daniel was telling the truth, if she'd staged his death, then Evelyn was still alive. And if she was alive, she'd been watching. The first proof came 3 days later. I was in my apartment, trying to force breakfast down, when the phone rang. Unknown number. I didn't answer. The voicemail that followed was short. Just a breath, then her voice. "You're chasing ghosts that were never yours." The message was time-stamped 11:43 a.m., the same time my father's watch always stopped. When I played it back again, I noticed something I'd missed before. The sound of water in the background. Waves. The slow hum of an engine. A boat. That evening, I drove to the marina where my father used to keep his fishing boat. It had been sold after the estate was liquidated. But I found the name still painted on one of the slips, the Evelyn Grace. The nameplate was new. The paint too fresh. Someone had bought it back. Inside the cabin, I found a single object resting on the table, a glass of red wine, half full. And beside it, a photograph. Evelyn, standing beside my father at the docks, smiling. On the back, in her handwriting. We all returned to the scene of mercy. I should have left then, but I couldn't. Because mercy was never her language. I stayed until dusk, waiting, the sound of the water knocking gently against the hull. The air smelled like salt and old wood. When the dock lights flickered on, I caught movement at the far end, someone walking toward me. Tall, slim, coat buttoned to the collar. She stopped just out of the light. "You found the letters," she said. My throat tightened. "You're supposed to be dead." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Everyone who tells the truth dies eventually." "Then why are you here?" "To finish what your father started." I didn't move. "You killed him." Her face hardened. "He killed himself. I just made sure he didn't take you down with him." "He asked you to?" She nodded. "He couldn't live with what he'd done. The company, the bribes, the lies. He wanted me to make it look like revenge. He thought it would protect you." "And Daniel?" Her expression changed, something between disgust and pity. He helped me bury what was left. By sleeping with you? Her laugh was sharp, bitter. That was his penance. And mine. I felt anger rise, fast and hollow. You could have told me. You could have told me everything. I tried, she said softly. But you were too busy trying to be him. The dock groaned beneath us, the tide pulling. Why now? I asked. Because you opened the safe. You've seen what he kept. The board will come for it. They'll come for you. I stepped closer. Then tell me how to stop them. You don't, she said. You burn it. And then what? She smiled faintly. Then you disappear, like I did. I shook my head. No, I'm not running from him anymore. Her voice softened. You think revenge will make you free. It won't, it'll make you him. The wind shifted, lifting her hair. I took one more step forward. What did he ask you to tell me? She hesitated. Then, quietly. That he forgave you before you even knew what to hate. I felt something in me crack, not anger this time, not grief. Just the weight of all the things that would never make sense. When I looked up, she was already walking away. Evelyn. She didn't turn. The last thing she said drifted over her shoulder, barely audible over the sound of the waves. Some debts don't end when we die, Adam. They just change who collects them. When she disappeared into the fog, I stayed on the dock, staring at the empty slip. The glass of wine was still there, untouched. And inside it, catching the last light, was my father's watch. Stopped at 11:43. Waiting for the next hand to wind it. For a while after that night on the dock, I convinced myself she was gone for good this time. I wanted to believe she had vanished into whatever purgatory people like her get to rest in, somewhere between guilt and forgiveness, but Evelyn had never been good at staying gone. I found the first sign 3 weeks later. While sorting through the boxes I'd taken from the storage locker. I was cataloging what was left of my father's files when I found a new envelope tucked between them, one that hadn't been there before. It was unmarked, sealed with red wax. Inside, a single page. The fire wasn't the end. It was the proof. Underneath, a photograph. My father standing in a warehouse, shaking hands with someone whose face had been torn away. The date scribbled at the bottom was from the year before he died. I turned the photo over. On the back. You'll find the rest where he began to lie. The handwriting was hers. I knew exactly where that was. The summer house by the cliffs. The one my father bought when his company was still clean. It had been boarded up for years. When I got there, the door was already open. Inside, the air was stale, thick with the smell of smoke and seawater. Everything was covered in a thin layer of dust, except for the dining table. 2 glasses, 2 plates, 2 sets of silverware. And in the center, a recorder. I pressed play. Static, then her voice. If you're hearing this, it means you've already seen too much. I didn't kill your father. He did it himself to save what was left of us. A pause. But the company, that was his legacy. He sold it piece by piece to people who wanted him gone. When he realized what he'd done, he burned everything, to keep them from finding you. That's why he left the safe. So you'd know what he couldn't tell. More static. Then a sound that froze me. Footsteps, faint, drawing closer on the recording. He's here, she whispered. If you ever loved him, Adam, leave before. The tape cut off. I stood there, listening to the wind batter the windows, the sea crashing below the cliffs. My hands shook as I turned off the recorder. A shadow moved in the doorway. For a moment, I thought it was her. It wasn't. It was Daniel. He looked older than I remembered, thinner, his eyes ringed with exhaustion. You shouldn't have come here, he said. Neither should you. He walked past me, glanced at the recorder. She told you everything? Almost, I said. You knew? He nodded. I helped him set it up. The fire, the death, the records. It was supposed to end with him. But she wanted to keep it going. Why? He looked up, his expression unreadable. Because she couldn't stand that he chose death over her. She told me she was saving me. Daniel laughed quietly. That's what she told herself. But she wasn't saving you, Adam. She was trying to rebuild him through you. His voice dropped. You ever wonder why she married him so fast after your mother died? Why she kept calling you Robert by accident? I froze. What are you saying? She wasn't just his lover. She was his alibi. He used her to bury what he'd done, and when he was gone, she used you to keep him alive. The room felt smaller. My breath came shallow. She's still out there, I said. He shook his head. She's everywhere. She doesn't die. She just becomes whoever's left. He reached into his coat, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and handed it to me. It was a photograph. Of me. Sleeping. Taken from the window outside my apartment. She wanted you to find her, he said. But she already has. When I looked up, he was gone. The front door swung slowly on its hinges, letting in the sound of the wind and waves below. I left everything where it was, the recorder, the photo. The ghost of her voice still echoing in my head. Outside, the horizon bled red against the sea. And I realized then that she'd never stopped reaching across the table. She just didn't need her hand anymore. Because she had mine. And maybe she always had. I didn't go back to the apartment after the summer house. I couldn't. Every wall there felt like a mirror she'd already stepped through. Instead, I checked into a motel by the highway. No address on record, no credit card trail. I told myself it was to disappear before she found me, but deep down, I knew she already had. Her handwriting was still burned behind my eyes. The fire wasn't the end. It was the proof. Proof of what? That she'd won? That my father had been right? That she'd outlived us both? I kept thinking about Daniel's words, how she became whoever's left. At first, I thought it was a metaphor. But then I started noticing it, the way strangers looked at me a beat too long. The way cashiers smiled like they knew something I didn't. And at night, when I caught my reflection in the motel window, there was a tilt in the head. A softness in the eyes that didn't belong to me. It was hers. 3 nights in, I got a knock at the door. Not loud, 3 slow, deliberate taps. When I opened it, no one was there. Only a small box sitting on the doormat. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, was a lighter. My father's. The initials RW still engraved on the side. When I flicked it open, a piece of paper fell out. Folded small enough to fit beneath the fuel chamber. You're almost ready. Don't let it happen again. No signature. But there was the faintest scent of jasmine clinging to the paper. The next morning, I drove. No map, no plan, just motion. I told myself I'd go as far as the tank would take me. By nightfall, I was 50 miles from the coast, deep in pine country. I stopped at a roadside diner just before closing. The waitress poured me coffee and said, "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I have," I said. She didn't laugh. She just nodded, as if she'd heard it before. When she came back with the check, there was a note written on the napkin. "Stop running, Adam. The past is patient." I looked up so fast the coffee sloshed over the rim of the cup. The waitress was gone. The only other sound was the old jukebox playing a song I hadn't heard in years, Evelyn's favorite. I walked out without paying. The motel I found that night was nearly empty. The clerk gave me a key and a polite smile that didn't reach his eyes. Room 17. When I opened the door, the first thing I saw was the mirror opposite the bed. Someone had written on it in lipstick, faint but legible, "You finally look like him." I dropped the lighter on the table. My hands were shaking. Because for the first time, I saw it too. The jawline. The way I held myself. The same weariness around the eyes. My father, staring back. I don't know how long I stood there before I heard the voice. Soft, clear, close. "I told you not to come back." I turned, but the room was empty. "You keep chasing answers," she said. "But the truth isn't what you think it is." "Then tell me," I said. "Tell me what I am." A pause. Then, almost tenderly, "You're the proof." Something inside me went still. He tried to destroy everything he built, but I made sure something of him survived. "No," I whispered. "Look at yourself," she said. "He thought he could burn it all away. But you're what's left." His face. His blood. His mistake. The air turned cold. My breath fogged the mirror. "You didn't inherit his sins, Adam," she whispered. "You're them." I remember smashing the mirror. The sound cracked through the room like a gunshot. The reflection shattered into 100 tiny pieces, each one catching her eyes for a fraction of a second before going dark. When I looked down, I saw the lighter still burning on the table. The flame was small, steady, almost beautiful. I let it fall. The carpet caught first. The smoke rose fast. And in that smoke, I heard her one last time, clear and steady. "Now you understand. The fire was never meant for him." Then the world turned white. I woke in the hospital 2 days later. They told me I was lucky. Minimal burns. No one else hurt. The room next door was empty. Though a nurse swore she'd seen a woman visiting me that first night, dark hair, pale coat, smiling as she left. No name, no record. They said I must have imagined her. But when I opened my palm, there was soot smeared into the lines of my skin, and faintly etched beneath it, the initials E.H. Evelyn Hart. Sometimes, when I can't sleep, I still smell the smoke. It doesn't scare me anymore. Because maybe she was right. Maybe I wasn't the one she haunted. Maybe I was the fire she left behind. The doctors said recovery would take months. They didn't mean the burns. They meant the part of me that still reached for her voice in every silence. I told them I was fine, that it was over, but ghosts don't die in fire, they breathe through it. When I left the hospital, I didn't go back to the city. I took a train north, far enough that no one knew the name Whitfield or the word arson. The air was clean, the nights empty. For the first time, I could hear my own heartbeat without hers beating under it. I rented a room above a bakery. The old woman downstairs gave me fresh bread in the mornings. Called me quiet boy. I liked that. Quiet was something I hadn't been in years. Still, I kept my father's watch. It had survived the fire, though the glass had cracked down the middle. The hands stopped moving at 11:43, his death, my rebirth, our curse. Sometimes I caught myself winding it, though I didn't know why. Spring came late that year. The snow melted in long, reluctant sighs, revealing earth dark as ash beneath it. I spent afternoons walking the back roads, the smell of pine thick in the air. One evening, I saw a woman on the path ahead, her figure pale against the trees. For one breath, I thought it was her, Evelyn, waiting the way she always did. just beyond the reach of forgiveness. But when I drew closer, it wasn't just a stranger, humming a tune I recognized. It was the song Evelyn used to hum while cooking, a melody that never found its end. The woman nodded politely as she passed. Her perfume lingered behind her, jasmine and smoke. And I realized that no one ever really leaves. They just change the ways they return. That night, I wrote for the first time in years. Not about revenge, or my father, or the fire, just a single line in a blank notebook. If the past is patient, maybe forgiveness can be too. I didn't know who I was forgiving. Her, him, or myself. Maybe all of us. Maybe none. Months passed. The scars faded. The bakery closed for the season. I grew used to the rhythm of quiet days, bread in the morning, long walks, letters I never sent. Then, one morning, an envelope slid under my door. No return address. Inside, a key. Small, brass, familiar. The key to my father's study. On the folded scrap of paper beneath it, one line. For when you're ready to open the door again. No signature. Just the faintest smear of lipstick on the corner of the page. I smiled despite myself. Because I knew what it meant. The past wasn't asking to be relived. It was asking to be faced. That afternoon, I took the key to the lake outside of town. The ice was just beginning to break, the surface glinting under the pale sun. I stood at the edge and whispered her name. Evelyn. It didn't echo. It didn't answer. I dropped the key into the water. It sank without a sound. The ripples spread outward, soft and clean, erasing every trace of where it had been. For the first time, I didn't imagine her standing beside me. I just felt her absence, vast and kind, like space finally given back. I walked home slowly, the wind warm on my face. In the distance, church bells rang, 12 chimes, steady and certain. When I looked at my father's watch, the hands had moved. 11:44. For the first time since the fire, time had started again. I took a breath that felt like the first honest one of my life. And in that breath, I heard her one last time, faint, almost a sigh. Now you understand. The fire was never meant to destroy. It was meant to make room. I closed my eyes, let the wind carry her voice away. Then I walked on, leaving smoke, ghosts, and blood behind me, and carrying, for once, nothing but the sound of my own heart still beating.